Hello guys. So I recently tried out the Christmas backdrop with Christmas lights. Now, if you can't get it right off the camera, there's a way to Photoshop it to make it right. But basically, when you do this, I had this little cute girl here today as my guinea pig because last year when I did it, I was shooting in my house and I didn't have enough room to get it to line up right, because what you actually need to do, it's kind of hard to tell in these pictures, but she was quite a ways away from the backdrop, because you want your Christmas lights to be out of focus and you want your camera to be focused on your subject, not the lights in the background. So I have my studio now, so I was able to move her quite a ways away from the backdrop to get that out of focus look on the backdrop. But you can see in this particular one, I took it so you could still see the wires and stuff, so that way I would be able to edit it and show you guys how to do it if you're pressed for space like I was last year. Last year I didn't really have very much room to work with at all, so it didn't work out very well because my subjects were like right up on the backdrop. So you want to get your depth of field right on these, but obviously if you don't have room, there's nothing you can do about it. So if you have tried this before with single strand lights, you know how tricky it is. I'm actually going to go buy some of the net lighting. That's kind of like the grid that you lay over your bushes, because I think it would be easier to use. But for this one, I just kind of tangle the strands up, twist tie them together, and it didn't work as well as I had hoped. So I wanted more lights, and obviously I can Photoshop it in there, but it takes time and I kind of get lazy sometimes. So tomorrow I'm actually going to go out and buy some of the netting light, and I hope that works better. Another thing I learned today is I thought that maybe if I turned off, because I usually have 3 soft boxes, and I'll use this picture for demonstration purposes. I have my backdrop here, so we're just going to pretend like this is a backdrop. Then I point one of my soft boxes, I put it here and point it kind of like at a diagonal, and then I have one here in the center, and then my person will be right here, right, and then I have a softbox here and I point it here. So I actually use 3, and obviously sometimes I move them around and such. But what I kind of thought would be better is if I didn't use this softbox here or this softbox, and I actually just use this one. And I mean, it didn't work terribly, but I kind of think that it might work better if you had all 3 softboxes on. I'm going to play with it and see what it looks like, because my backdrop, which it doesn't look bad, it turned out kind of orange, and I wanted it more of a white tone, but you know, if you like that orangey kind of look, then whatever. So I had to play with it and see what's going to work, but that's how I had my lighting set up. And I would say she was probably about 3 yards between, like there was 3 yards between her and the backdrop, and then I was a couple feet in front of her. So that's kind of how my setup was today. So I already did all my pre-editing, tried to get my lighting right, all that sort of thing. And if you're not familiar with what layers are in Photoshop, I'm using Photoshop Elements 7, but 10 is pretty much the same, so you'll be able to do it in that. So what layers are basically different layers to the picture. So when you open up a picture, you have your background layer. And then every time you do something to it, like if you change it to black and white or sepia or whatever, it adds a new layer. So for this particular demonstration here, I'm going to duplicate my background layer. So you can right click on it, and then you're going to duplicate layer. So that's just going to make a copy of the background layer. So you can see down here in these 2 icons, it's the same exact picture. And you'll see why we have to do that in a minute. So the first thing you can do, if you want more lights, like I don't like how there's so much empty space. So I'm actually going to use my clone stamp tool and copy some of these lights, just because I want some more lights. So I'm just going to copy. Oops, got our headband in there. So we're going to kind of fix that here, and then I'm going to throw some more lights over here because it's kind of empty. So I'm just going to clone stamp all this and kind of get rid of that edge. And then I'm going to throw some down here as well, because I think it needs the whole backdrop. But I didn't realize how many Christmas lights it would take. I had 7 boxes of them, and that wasn't enough. So when you go to buy your Christmas lights, get more than 7 boxes. So what we're going to do is, you have all your lights how you want them. And now what you're going to do is you're going to come up to filter. You're going to come down to blur. And you're going to come down to surface blur. And then you're going to click it. And you can, depending on how much of your Christmas lights are in focus, you can adjust this to have bigger blur, like radius on your pixels, or you can make it stronger. So you can kind of play around with it and see what you like. I'm actually going to leave it like this because I think that looks fine. So I'm going to hit OK. Now you can see it also blurred her face once it's done converting it. And we don't really want it to be all blurred because it looks kind of weird. I want her face to be normal. I guess some people may like that. I think it looks too perfect. So this is why we have our 2 layers, okay? Because if I take the top layer off that I duplicated the back from, it's just the original image. So you can see it's what we started with. So this background layer is over top of it. Well, I like how the background looks. I just don't like how she looks. So what I'm actually going to do is take my eraser tool, and then I'm just going to erase this layer that we just put on. So I'm just going to go over her face and her hair and her bow and her ears and all that kind of stuff. And you can see it's taking the blur off, because what you're doing is you're erasing that layer that we just did. So the background's still going to be blurred out, but we're just going to clean up her face and her shirt and all that kind of stuff. So you're just going to run your eraser over everything that you don't want blurred. And what this is doing is it's allowing that background layer, which is our original picture, which is this one, it's just letting that shine through. But you still have the blur on the original one. Or I'm sorry, the duplicated one. So you can see my background still has that nice blur on it, but she doesn't. So if you can't get your background right, this is a pretty easy way to do it. One thing I will tell you though is, like I said in my other videos, when you're working with layers, if you don't merge all your layers down and you go to save it, it's going to save it as a Photoshop file. So you want to make sure you change that to a JPEG if you're going to be giving it to a client, because if they don't have Photoshop, then they can't open it up. And then they're going to be like, why did you do this? I can't open it up, blah, 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 blah. Or what you can do is you can just merge all your layers together. How you do that is you merge down. You just right click on your background layer, merge down. Or the keyboard shortcut is Control-Shift-E. E is an elephant. And then when you go to save it, it defaults to the JPEG file. But it really doesn't matter. Either way is fine. So that's how you do it. And then after you throw your blur on, if you do have to clone stamp more lights in there because you didn't have enough like me. Like this one I think looks a little weird. So I actually would just use my smudge tool and just kind of smudge it a little bit to kind of get it all gathered together. Probably get rid of that one too and that one. Come in here and clean these up. But that's how you do it. It's pretty easy. Not too much to do in Photoshop. Like I said, I think that the netting light is actually going to be easier. Depending on your setup though, you may be able to make the strands work. I have a roller system, so I didn't really have very much to clip the lights on. But if you have a backdrop stand and you have 2 poles like this, one thing I learned is you can take the lights and just kind of hang them across like this, and then it will look better. I don't have that luxury anymore since I have my roller system. My old backdrop system I had would work just fine. But how I actually had to do it, because I just have like my bar up here, I kind of scalloped them like this. And then I took single strands and just tried to twist tie them across like this, and it was not as easy as I thought it would be. So I'm actually going to try the netting light tomorrow, and I think it's going to work better because it's already in that grid shape. So, you know, you can do whatever you want, do whatever lights, you can do different colors. And the backdrop I actually had my Christmas lights set on is white. And one thing I will tell you is when you do these pictures, you want to make sure that your cord kind of matches your backdrop. Because even this is a bright white cord, but you can still see it, but not nearly as much as if it was like a dark green cord. So that's something else to keep in mind. If you are shooting on a white background, you probably don't want to get dark green. Or if you're shooting on a black background, you don't want to get white, because obviously it's going to show up more. But that's how you do it. So I hope this was pretty easy to follow. I tried to make it easy. And if you guys have any questions, you can message me. Thanks.